a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. The Handmaid's Tale. The Handmaid's Tale is a dystopian novel by Canadian author Margaret Atwood, originally published in 1985. It is set in a near-future New England, in a totalitarian state resembling a theonomy, which has overthrown the United States government. The novel focuses on the journey of the handmaid Offred. Her name derives from the possessive form, Offred. Handmaids are forbidden to use their birth names and must echo the male, or master, whom they serve. The Handmaid's Tale explores themes of women in subjugation in a patriarchal society and the various means by which these women attempt to gain individualism and independence. The novel's title echoes the component parts of Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales, which is a series of connected stories. The Handmaid's Tale is structured into two parts, Night and other various events. This novel can be interpreted as a double narrative, Offred's Tale and The Handmaid's Tales. The Night sections are solely about Offred, and the other sections are the stories that describe the possible life of every handmaid, though from the perspective of Offred. In many of these sections, Offred jumps between past and present as she retells the events leading up to the fall of women's rights and the current details of the life which she now lives. The Handmaid's Tale won the 1985 Governor-General's Award and the first Arthur C. Clarke Award in 1987. It was also nominated for the 1986 Nebula Award, the 1986 Booker Prize, and the 1987 Prometheus Award. The book has been adapted into a 1990 film, a 2000 opera, a television series, and other media. Plot summary. The Handmaid's Tale is set in the Republic of Gilead, a theonomic military dictatorship formed within the borders of what was formerly the United States of America. Beginning with a staged attack that kills the president and most of Congress, a radical political group calling itself the Sons of Jacob, and exploiting religious ideology that closely resembles some traits of Christian fundamentalism, launches a revolution and suspends the United States Constitution under the pretext of restoring order. They quickly abolish women's rights, largely attributed to financial records being stored electronically and labeled by sex. The new regime, the Republic of Gilead, moves quickly to consolidate its power, including overtaking all pre-existing religious groups, including traditional Christian denominations, and reorganize society along a new militarized, hierarchical model of Old Testament-inspired social and religious fanaticism among its newly created social classes. In this society, human rights are severely limited and women's rights are strictly curtailed. For example, women are forbidden to read, and anyone caught in homosexual acts would be hanged for gender treachery. The story is told in the first person by a woman called Offred. The character is one of a class of women with healthy reproductive systems, in an era of declining birth rates owing to increasing infertility. These women are forcibly assigned to produce children for the ruling class, and are known as handmaids, based on the biblical story of Rachel and her handmaid Bilhah. Offred describes her life during her third assignment as a handmaid, in this case to Fred Waterford. Interspersed with her narratives of her present-day experiences are flashback discussions of her life from before and during the beginning of the revolution, when she finds she has lost all autonomy to her husband, their failed attempt to escape to Canada, and finally her indoctrination into life as a handmaid by government-trained women called aunts. Offred describes the structure of Gilead society, including the different classes of women and their lives within the new theonomy. The women are physically segregated by color of clothing: blue, red, green, striped and white, to signify social class and assigned position. Ranked highest to lowest. The commanders' wives are dressed in blue, handmaids in red, Marthas in green. Striped clothing is for all other women who essentially do everything in the domestic sphere. Young Unmarried girls are dressed in white. The commander is a high-ranking official in Gilead. Although his contact with Offred is supposed to be limited to the ceremony, a ritual of rape intended to result in conception, and at which his wife is present, he begins an illegal relationship with Offred. Secret meetings occur in his study, which the commander's wife is not permitted to enter. The room is filled with books and is considered a private place for the man of the house. During these meetings, he tries to earn her trust by talking and playing board games such as Scrabble with her. He also lets and watches her read, another offense, as women are not permitted to read and write. The commander offers her contraband products, such as old-fashioned magazines and cosmetics. Finally, he gives her lingerie and takes her to a government-run brothel called Jezebel's. This brothel is meant to add variety to men's sex lives which, as claimed by the commander, is necessary. At Jezebel's, Offred encounters her friend, Moira, who had escaped from the handmaid training center, and learns how she came to be there. Moira explains that defiant women who could not adjust to the new society might be offered work at Jezebel's rather than be forced to work in the colonies, cleaning up radioactive waste. The women in the brothels are allowed alcohol and drugs, a freedom Offred notes. Though they are allowed to choose their patrons, they are discouraged from refusing a man's advances. The commander's wife, Serena Joy, is a minor antagonist. Offred remembers her as a Christian media personality who supported women's domesticity and subordinate role well before Gilead was established. Serena is clearly bored and unhappy that she was taken at her word. Offred assumes and hates sharing her husband with a handmaid. Ironically, though, Serena also has secret interactions with Offred, arranging for her to sleep with Nick, the commander's driver, in an effort to get Offred pregnant. In return, Serena Joy gives her news of her daughter and a recent photo. Offred has not seen her child since she and her family were captured trying to escape Gilead. After Offred's initial meeting with Nick, they begin to meet more frequently. Offred discovers she enjoys sex with him, despite her indoctrination and her memories of her husband. She shares potentially dangerous information about her past with him. Through her shopping partner, a woman called Ofglen, Offred learns of the Mayday Resistance, an underground network working to overthrow the Republic of Gilead. Shortly after Ofglen's disappearance, the commander's wife finds evidence of the relationship between Offred and the commander. Offred contemplates suicide. As the novel concludes, Offred tells Nick that she thinks she is pregnant. Shortly afterwards, she is taken away by men wearing the uniform of the secret police, the Eyes of God, known informally as the Eyes. As she is led to a waiting van, Nick tells her to trust him and go with the men. It is unclear whether the men are actually Eyes, or members of the Mayday Resistance. Offred is unsure if Nick is a member of Mayday, or an Eye posing as one, and is unsure if leaving will result in her escape or her capture. She enters the van with her future uncertain. The novel concludes with a metafictional epilogue that explains that the events of the novel occurred shortly after the beginning of what is called the Gilead period. The epilogue is a partial transcript of the proceedings of the 12th Symposium on Gileadian Studies, written in 2195 and hosted by Professor Marianne Crescent Moon. According to the symposium's keynote speaker, Professor James Darcy Pieixoto, he and his colleague Professor Notley Wade discovered Offred's story recorded onto cassette tapes. They transcribed the tapes, calling them collectively The Handmaid's Tale. Through the tone and actions of the professionals in this final section of the book, the world of academia is highlighted and critiqued, and Pieixoto discusses his team's search for the characters named in the tale, and the impossibility of proving the tape's authenticity. However, the existence of tapes does imply that Offred escaped and survived for at least a time, and thus that the Eyes that collected her were, in fact, part of Mayday. The epilogue also suggests that, following the collapse of the theonomic Republic of Gilead, A more equal society re-emerged, though not the United States that had previously existed, with a restoration of full rights for women and freedom of religion. Offred. Offred is the protagonist and narrator. She was labelled a wanton woman when Gilead was established, because she had married a man who was divorced. All divorces were nullified by the new government, meaning her husband was now considered still married to his first wife, making Offred an adulteress. In trying to escape Gilead, she was separated from her husband and daughter. She is part of the first generation of Gilead's women, those who remember pre-Gilead times. Proved fertile, she is considered an important commodity, and has been placed as a handmaid in the home of the commander Fred Waterford and his wife Serena Joy, to bear a child for them. Offred is a slave name that describes her function. She is of Fred. In the novel, Offred says that she is not a concubine, but a tool, a two-legged womb. The handmaids' names say nothing about who the women really are. Their only identity is as the commander's property. Offred is also a pun on the word offered, as in offered as a sacrifice, and of red, because the red dress assigned for the handmaids in Gilead. The women in training to be handmaids whisper names across their beds at night. The names are Alma, Janine, Dolores, Moira, June, and all are later accounted for except June. In addition, one of the aunts tells the handmaids in training to stop mooning and tuning. From this and other references, some readers have inferred that her birth name could be June. Minor suggests that June is a pseudonym. As Mayday is the name of the Gilead resistance, June could be an invention by the protagonist. The Nunavut conference covered in the epilogue takes place in June. When the Hulu TV series chose to state outright that Offred's real name is June, Atwood wrote that it was not her original intention to imply that Offred's real name is June, but it fits. So readers are welcome to it if they wish. The Commander. The commander says that he is a sort of scientist and was previously involved in something similar to market research, pre-Gilead. Later, it is hypothesized, but not confirmed, that he might have been one of the architects of the Republic and its laws. Presumably, his first name is Fred, though that, too, may be a pseudonym. He engages in forbidden intellectual pursuits with Offred, such as playing Scrabble, and introduces her to a secret club that serves as a brothel for high-ranking officers. Offred learns that the commander carried on a similar relationship with his previous handmaid, and that she killed herself when his wife found out. In the epilogue, the academics speculate that one of two figures, both instrumental in the establishment of Gilead, may have been Fred, based on his first name. It is strongly suggested that the commander was a man named Frederick R. Waterford who was killed in a purge shortly after Offred was taken away, charged with harboring an enemy agent. Serena Joy. Serena Joy is a former televangelist and the commander's wife in the fundamentalist theonomy. The state took away her power and public recognition, and tries to hide her past as a television figure. Offred identifies her master's wife by recalling seeing her on TV when she was a little girl early on Saturday mornings while waiting for the cartoons to air. Believed to be sterile, she is forced to accept that he has use of a handmaid. She resents having to take part in the monthly fertility ritual. She strikes a deal with Offred to arrange for her to have sex with Nick in order to become pregnant. According to Professor Pieixoto in the epilogue, Serena Joy, or Pam, are pseudonyms. The character's real name is implied to be Thelma. Ofglen. Ofglen is a neighbor of Offred's and a fellow handmaid. She is partnered with Offred to do the daily shopping. Handmaids are never alone and are expected to police each other's behavior. Ofglen is a member of the Mayday resistance. In contrast to Offred, she is daring. She knocks out a Mayday spy who is to be tortured and killed in order to save him the pain of a violent death. Offred is told that when Ofglen vanishes, it is because she has committed suicide before the government can take her into custody due to her membership in the resistance, possibly to avoid giving away any information. A new handmaid, also called Ofglen, takes Ofglen's place, and is assigned as Offred's shopping partner. She threatens Offred against any thought of resistance. She breaks protocol by telling her what happened to the first Ofglen. Nick is the commander's chauffeur, who lives above the garage. By Serena Joy's arrangement, he and Offred start a sexual relationship to increase her chance of getting pregnant. If she were unable to bear the commander a child, she would be declared sterile and shipped to the ecological wastelands of the colonies. Offred begins to develop feelings for him. Nick is an ambiguous character, and Offred does not know if he is a party loyalist or part of the resistance, though he identifies himself as the latter. The epilogue suggests that he really was part of the resistance and aided Offred in escaping the commander's house. Moira has been a close friend of Offred's since college. A lesbian, she has resisted the homophobia of Gilead society. Moira is taken to be a handmaid soon after Offred. She escapes by stealing an aunt's purse and clothes. But Offred later finds her working as a prostitute in a party-run brothel. She was caught and chose the brothel rather than to be sent to the colonies. Luke was Offred's husband prior to the formation of Gilead, having divorced his first wife to marry her. Under Gilead, all divorces were retroactively nullified, resulting in Offred being considered an adulteress and their daughter illegitimate. Offred was forced to become a handmaid and her daughter was given to a loyalist family. Since their attempt to escape to Canada, Offred has heard nothing of Luke. Professor Pieixoto is the co-discoverer, with Professor Notley Wade, of Offred's tapes. In his presentation at an academic conference, he talks about the problems of authentication in reference to The Handmaid's Tale. Pieixoto is therefore the person who is retelling Offred's story, and so makes the narration even more unreliable than it was originally. Setting: the novel is set in an indeterminate future, speculated to be around the year 2005, with a fundamentalist theonomy ruling the territory of what had been the United States, but is now the Republic of Gilead. Individuals are segregated by categories and dressed according to their social functions. Complex dress codes play a key role in imposing social control within the new society and serve to distinguish people by sex, occupation, and caste. The action takes place in what once was the Harvard Square neighborhood of Cambridge, Massachusetts. Atwood studied at Radcliffe College, located in this area. Politics: in Gilead, the bodies of fertile women are politicized and controlled. The North American population is falling as more men and women become infertile. Gilead's treatment of women is based upon a literal, fundamentalist interpretation of the Bible, meaning that women are the property of and subordinate to their husband, father, or head of household. They are not allowed to do anything that would grant them any power independent of this system. They are not allowed to vote, hold a job, read, possess money, or own anything, among many other restrictions. A particular quote from The Handmaid's Tale sums this up. "The Republic of Gilead," said Aunt Lydia, "knows no bounds. Gilead is within you." This describes that there is no way around the societal bounds of women in this new state of government. Handmaids, being not allowed to wed, are given 2-year assignments with a commander and lose their own name. They are called of their commander's first name, such as the novel's protagonist, known only as Offred. When a handmaid is reassigned, her name changes with her. Their original identities before the revolution are suppressed, although while being re-educated as handmaids, they surreptitiously share their names with each other. In this book, the government appears to be strong, though no one in Gilead seems to be a true believer in its revolution. The commanders, portrayed via Commander Fred, do not agree with their own doctrines. The commander takes Offred at one point to a brothel in order to have sex with her in an informal setting apart from the ceremony. The wives, portrayed via Serena Joy, former television evangelist, disobey the rules set forth by their commander husbands. Serena smokes black market cigarettes and expresses the forbidden idea that men may be infertile, and schemes to get Offred impregnated by her chauffeur. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?